So after 2 years of me 3D printing my own solution for the Ace Pro 2, which fixes the focus, Insta360 has finally knocked me off. Now, if you recall, about 2 years ago when the Ace Pro came out, I reviewed it and found that the minimum focus of the camera was about 6 feet away. But I put a little diopter on front, and now it's like vlog mode. Nailed. And so I created my own solution, a 3D printed adapter that clicks on the Ace Pro or the Ace Pro 2 and some 52mm diopters sourced from Amazon. Together, this combination would cut the focus down considerably depending on the diopter strength. And for the last 2 years, I've printed and sold a few hundred of these solutions to all of you, and it's been great until today. And now they have the gall to ask me to review it. We're going to Germany, visit Leica, and they're gonna give me full credit. Now, this episode is sponsored by Insta360, but they have zero say or control over what I make. So early, you want to espresso or something?
Another personal accessory that I've actually been liking it, probably for how long, for 2 years now, to make this accessory. He's even made his own diopters. Field guitar engineers and said, guys, why are you not doing this? So thank you for the inspiration.
A few moments later.
Didn't even give me credit for the star bokeh thing.
I feel like he gave you a lot of credit.
Hey, why don't you tell him?
Star filter?
Yeah, tell him about the inspiration for the star filter idea. It's one in my video. Now, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but pay close attention at the very end. And after a little bit of shenanigans,
Wait, hang on.
with some credit in hand, it was time for me to make my exit. All right, so all gimmicks aside, what can we expect from these latest accessories from a professional standpoint? So I'm gonna dissect them like I would any cinema lens if I were to use them for a film or project of mine. You know, big budget productions do use small action cameras like this all the time for various shots and effects, and they would use adapters like this to accomplish their goals. For example, 2025 horror film Sinners use a dozen Ace Pros to make up their Halo rig, a 360-degree full-head motion capture rig designed to record Michael B. Jordan's performance during fight scenes. They needed a small, compact Ace Pro with 8K resolution, and wouldn't you guess it, they equipped it with 52mm diopters in front for razor-sharp close focus. Now, one thing I found interesting is that Insta360 has recently changed the front of the Ace Pro 2. It now looks more of like an octagon shape, and the accessories pop into this spot where the new round portion pops off. Now, these can fit the original Ace Pro 2, but they cannot fit the original Ace Pro 1, which is a bit of a bummer. Now, right off the bat, I have to admit, the macro lens is pretty rad. If you intend to vlog with this action camera or any action camera, you definitely need the macro lens. Now, I hate to be replaced, but this portion, this focusing agent on the macro lens right here, see a little flower and there's a little person? It can focus from 3.9 inches to 30 inches. So you could be vlogging or you could have a nice POV shot on your camera rig, which is what I use this a lot for. Now, just the focusing ability on it is already a huge step up from my system of having to pop diopters in and out and then focusing it by moving the camera closer or farther. Now, it is a little tricky nailing focus on such a small, 2-inch screen. So I definitely recommend using the app on the bigger screen on your phone. Last year when I was shooting everything on diopters, I would just measure it in advance and then put a little sticker that would say how many inches away from the diopter it was that it was in focus. And that works. That's like the first AC method. In this case, because it's variable, you don't need to do all that. I would suggest adding a little silver pen and marking a center dot so you know exactly, without having to move the thing, where focus is. That would be one suggestion I would make. Now, Insta360 has attempted to make a focus peaking solution work, but truthfully, it's fallen a little short so far. So if you dig into the menu with the latest update, version 2.0.3, there's a little lens icon that works for the various lens profiles. When you select the close focus profile, it gives you focus peaking option. And nowhere else in the menu is this option offered other than in this little sub menu. Currently seems to be doing absolutely nothing. Pretty much everything is peaking, and there's zero difference between when you focus it from the flower to the person. Also, there's no peaking option in the app, and there's no HDMI out on this camera, so the only way to hook up a third-party monitor with peaking is to run it through a computer, then to a third-party monitor with peaking enabled. And I did all that, and still, no difference. I even took this one step further to see if it was just a blur factor, like if I stacked all of the diopters that I owned on there and really blurred the background, would it tell a difference? Now, if we add an additional +6 diopter on top of the Insta360 macro lens, we can see the peaking is kind of starting to work. The label is now in focus and peaking is telling us that, but there's also some strays in the background that peaking is still picking up for some reason. If we toss an additional plus 10 diopter on top of all that, so a grand total of plus 22 diopter strength with all things considered, we finally get peaking to work. Background is not peaking, label is sharp focus and peaking. Whew.
Now, the funny thing is that I showed all this to the Insta360 engineers, and I actually heard back from them. They are confident they can tweak the algorithm and get it to work. And I was like, well, even if you can't, how about just like a little touchscreen 4x zoom? So you just double tap the screen, it zooms in for like 5 seconds, 4 times, and then you just, you can just focus it that way. But they assure me that they'll have a fix on the next firmware update. So
the best method right now I have is just use your phone and use that bigger screen to see what's in focus. Optically, I do like the design. There's less distortion using this adapter than using my 3D prints and the cheaper diopters that are on Amazon. Also, I don't need to swap diopters. If I want to vlog or if I want to change focus and get something, I can literally just change the focus right in here. Now, I would estimate this is a +1 to +6 variable diopter, so it's not as strong as, say, a +10. So if I wanted to get a really close like eyeball shot, then I would have to remove this and put on my own +10 diopter. But for the majority of things in the macro world, it's gonna have you covered. Regardless what you do, this is a very powerful way to make your camera punch up because it's blurring the background and making the subject razor sharp focus. And it's something that you normally don't see in action cameras, and it easily makes it look like full frame footage. Like here's some examples I shot this summer and last summer with various diopters on small action cameras, and I love how small and intimate these shots are. I mean, the camera is so small, I could put it on my kid's hat. And with a diopter on there, I could aim it at their eye is in sharp focus, and now I'm seeing their world reflected off of their eyeball. It's such a unique shot, you'd never be able to do that with a regular camera. This is probably the most pro thing you can do to an action camera. If you think this isn't super pro, the movie F1 used an action camera for this shot of Brad Pitt's eye for this helmet cam shot, and Panavision made them a custom diopter for it for that exact shot. The fisheye lens is super fun. It's actually more fun than I thought it would be. It has a surprising close focus distance of about 6 inches. And at a 189-degree field of view, this is the equivalent of shooting on like one side of the 360 camera, but without the headache of having to transform the footage or the plugins or the 360 Studio app, blah, blah, blah. You get the absolute full width of this lens if you shoot in 4K with stabilization off and in action mode or ultra mode. At that point, you can actually see behind the lens. It really is 189 degrees.
This is my new way to vlog. I'm just gonna vlog like this.
But you also get some vignetting at that wide too. I think the real kicker for this lens and why it's useful is to keep the composition when you're using all of those crop sensor items such as 8K with stabilization on high. At this setting, you're still insanely wide, much wider than what's possible on the typical iPhone at like the 0.5 lens setting. And you're also not compromising any width. So if you're doing action sports or, you want all that stabilization and wide as can be, bingo. I love this lens for all of the close DIY building shots in my studio, placing this camera in places that I would not want to stick my phone, or maybe I don't have the size to stick my full frame mirrorless. The 8K of the camera really shines on the wide angle lenses where you need that extra resolution to punch through. So I didn't think I would like it. I like it. The cinematic lens is an anamorphic one. And now at first glance, it doesn't seem to be really anamorphic. If you simply shoot with the lens on and do a square test where you print a square and then import the square into your NLE, stack the two images and scale the width to match the height until it's square again, you can see there's not much of a squeeze factor uniformly across the whole frame. In the center, it's really only a 1.06 stretch factor. So it seems to be stretching mostly the sides. So I shot a test test. One, I went in the menu and I selected the cinematic lens profile, and the other, I simply shot with the lens on and let the camera think it's connected to the normal lens, disabling all of the in-camera applied effects like the D-squeeze. And we can see just how little the squeeze actually is, and we can learn it's mostly adding a crop, putting us into the 235:1 aspect ratio, and it's giving us a tiny bit wider information on the sides from the lens. Even though we know it's really just stretching the sides and not the center like, an anamorphic lens does, it does a good job of making the composition wider and look more cinematic with very little effort. But it is mostly stretching the sides. I would suggest framing your subject in the center. And the flare, well, the flare leaves much to be desired. And the distortion is kind of subjective, as it's entirely dependent on what setting you have for the view. Let's just say it's an action camera, so it's barrel. Fucking barrel, dude, it's fucking barrel. The bokeh, because this is an action camera with fixed focus, we can't get out of focus pin lights, right? That was until I 3D printed my own 67mm diopter on there. With a +10 diopter, we can now get out of focus backgrounds and we can see just what it's doing to the bokeh. Interesting. Another note to add is that with this lens profile in the menu, you get the option of shooting an iLog, which is a flat log profile for Insta360. Now, Ace Pro 2 is in 8-bit. I don't know if it's real log, but I will say I do like the color modes out of this better than normal. There is a more filmic color profile in the iLog if you know how to color grade, and it does look better. Whatever they're doing in there, it's working, but be prepared, it is noisy, so you're gonna have to denoise this footage. There's no denoising. It also doesn't work in 8K, and it also doesn't work in 4K pure video mode, but I could see professional sets using this mode so that they have more control over the color. But no 8K on the, why? They also made this Bluetooth Explorer grip thing. It's a camera cage, a grip, a battery, and a control all in one. And now it connects to the USB-C, and it provides an additional 2010 milliamps of battery juice, which is basically an additional 1.25 of these. So that's super helpful. It has a cold shoe, an audio port, multifunction dial, stop, start, record, zoom rocker, and additional memory slot. I think the biggest selling points for me, having this protect it. If I drop it, it's not gonna shatter the screen. It looks good on my camera collection wall. The printer. The printer seems to be one of those ideas that just makes sense for any camera enthusiast. I mean, it comes with a few extra film rolls. You charge it, then you connect it to the Bluetooth option in the camera menu, and it connects instantly. It'll stay on for about 15 minutes before disconnecting and then automatically powering off. Once it's connected, you can just print by snapping a photo and it'll just automatically print. Or you can scroll through your photo album and select the 3 dots and then hit the print icon. Now, when compared to other pocket Bluetooth printers, the print quality does seem to be better than the other models. There's no pixel crushing, no line skipping. This is color accurate, but the actual print process does seem to take about a minute or two. That was surprising. It uses a 3-pass CMY sublimation dye process when printing, so the print paper moves in and out. First it gets a yellow pass, then a magenta, then a cyan, and then finally a clear protective overcoat. And the result is a smooth, continuous tone photo with rich color, no drying time, and a durable fingerprint resistant finish. This seems to be about the same size as other pocket printers I have, and I like that it like clicks on here. That's kind of fresh. And I also like that it doesn't require any third-party app. Like, it just connects instantly. That's way better than my other pocket printer. Like, I can never connect to that one. For like most of us, this is probably great for like spur of the moment family photo prints, or let's just say I leave the macro lens on. Hey.
Hey.
I printed you some photos. Yeah, so I misspoke. Nobody wants to see that. In my mind, this was such a better idea. You know what? She didn't give it back. She kept it. Yes! All of these adapters on here are already sold out. So I can see why. Insta360 has some pretty insane Black Friday specials. So definitely check it out. Special thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring all this and giving me full credit for my ingenuity.
Tell them about the inspiration for the star filter idea too.
Oh, he's acting like he doesn't remember.
No.